There we go. I'm a genius. Leave it to the laptop, right? There we go. Sure. Just let me know when you're ready. All right. All right. Well, this is a talk about how to protect your privacy. I'm Nexus. Not too worried about people knowing exactly who I'm from. From Ohio. Hang out a lot with the Ken 2600 guys. Linux user group guys. Sorry. This is my first talk. I'm not a professional at this, so by any means, if you want to make fun, go ahead.
Okay.
Except for you guys. And wherever Rick's at. All right. So what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be taking a look at how to go about finding your information. A lot of anecdotes I'll give today will be based upon different small intel, what they call intel groups, such as anybody ever hear of like goons.net or Deface? They're small groups, bunch of guys who like to go and harass people online. But at any rate, we're going to talk about how they can use this information to either drive you guys crazy, drive you up the wall, how they go about doing it, what exactly they're looking for and why they're doing it, how you can go about protecting your information, and we're going to play a little bit about disinformation, just ways to help protect yourself that might get somebody else harassed, somebody you don't like. Why not? And it's going to repeat. What we're going to be starting with is usually what the attacker will start with, dealing with usually an email address or a really unique username. Commonly what they're looking for is real name, address, city, phone number, common credentials that you'd be looking for somebody. They look anywhere. DeadAddict made a few good points on the fact that networking sites, YouTube, MySpace, LiveJournal, any kind of social networking sites have a lot of information about you. Usually it's you who put it on there, and your friends will have a little bit of information on you from your friends list. Forums you post on, just small little tidbits like that. Other places they like to look, or we can look, would be, as I said before, social networking sites. Especially on MySpace, if your profile is public, it's possibly your worst enemy, considering if you've got your school on there, your name, where you work, new usernames, possible ways of contacting them. I ran into a few people that are on my friends list that happen to have their email address and their AIM account right there in their profile. Then directly under it, they got their real name and all their interests and what they look like and all kind of little tidbits. And they wonder why people keep on calling them randomly. Instant messenger sites, your AIM profile, your MSN username, your Yahoo username, if it's not generic, odds are, I've seen a few people who had like John space or underscore Griffin 44420, which was the kid's name and his zip code for his username on a couple different AIM sites. Other things that we're looking at, Walker, I heard that. Online phone books, such as white pages. A lot of the times they'll look at public record sites. I know DeadAddict brought that up. I know Ohio, especially in the Mahoney and Trumbull County, they give you everything: the person's name, their address, their phone number, court records, both federal. Well, beyond just the court records, a couple of them, especially the Youngstown one, will give you an social security number at times for the older ones, especially the Youngstown's docket system is not very great. There's Intel sites called like Intellis. Intellis is the only one I can think of offhand. What they offer information lookups. You can find people by their username and address, their real name and address to get what email address they have, vice versa. So you can look up phone numbers. These are all resources that come with a cost. I think the email one alone that I was looking at was like $3, so they're not too expensive. Private investigators, I know a group called the NOS have used them before to try and find a few people that were in their local area. It actually got a bit messy, and I'll touch up on that a little bit later on. What I've come up with is a little bit of proof of concept. A young kid asked me to look up information on him, see what was able to be found. I did manage to get his okay to sort of produce some of this information on here for the talk, because nobody else wanted to let me do it. I couldn't figure out why. Kid's name, he's Crow Crazy. I've changed the name and numbers around slightly. What we're going to be using is his email address and just his common username. And what we're looking for is other email addresses, sites he posts on, social networking sites, forums, gaming sites, AIM accounts, Xfire accounts, anything that you can use to build a beginning profile for them to be able to look for them. We're going to be using primarily Google for this, which a lot of people will do because, shit, Google archives fucking everything. The initial search I came up with from Google had multiple different results, but only 2 actually came up specifically matching the username and the email address at once. So the information I had found was, well, these are the sites. Forgot about the slide. And this was the first profile. First profile gave us a name, helped us verify the person's email address, gave us the last time they logged in, so this lets us know that any information that we find in there more likely is up to date and we can use it to at least form a profile to get the basic footworking done. It also gave us a possible name. The kid did put his real name in there, but that's probably one of the dumbest things to do, especially on a hacker site, which is one of the things he was posting on. And that's just his profile up close. So you can see it gives his AIM account, last time he registered, and even a possible date of birth. So what we know from here now is we know we've been able to verify, at least somewhat verify, the email address as possibly being real. We know now that it's verified. I was able to double verify by pulling up a MySpace account on the kid, but I'm not going to display that. We have a name, age, possible date of birth, and we narrowed down to be able to get our profile, our basic profile on him to look like this. Not very impressive. So far, we think the kid's 14. We have a name. We have a possible date of birth. We're able to verify, okay, we know he has AIM, and we know what his email address is now. But that's not quite enough to pull anything up on something like, say, whitepages.com. If we had his full name and a city and state, we'd be able to narrow down who he possibly may be by looking up different households that are just strictly with that name and address, at least using the last name and address. The second profile I took from an internet radio station site that the kid supposedly DJs on. Once again, it mentioned his email address and the username. Provided us a city and state to work with, as well as it also provided, however, a new age that he placed into the profile. So that was actually his attempt at a disinformation campaign, which I'll explain a little bit later of that. The basic profile he provided, as you can see, it gives us a city and state now, Cary, North Carolina. We got verification as well as possible interest now. He's talking about how he's looking for requests for his music. Not a great hit, but that can be useful later on, especially if you find any sites or profiles that are dealing primarily with music, as far as like DJing sites, people looking for new music, looking for new internet radio personalities, just stuff like that. Our new footprinting profile that we would actually be able to work on from this information, and which I was able to find a lot on, was this. Not much difference in the information besides a different age, possible new date of birth, and a city and state. From this little bit of information, though, I didn't bring up the slide on it, but I was able to find about 2 possible hits on a household through White Pages alone that was possibly him. And out of all the people in North Carolina to get 2 possible hits, it's narrowing it down a little bit too much for my likings. Some of the things they can do with this information once they have your name, your address, and phone number, just simple pranks. There's a few different things they can do, from your average, hey, is your refrigerator running, to ordering a bunch of pizzas. Second level of harassment is when the pranks escalate from the simple pranks to more harassing, I'm going to kill you type of deal, where it starts to get a little bit scary. Criminal menacing is, I actually got the term off my one buddy, but it's when things get really severe. By this point, if you don't have the police involved, you are stupid, and you are asking to have yourself messed with. They'll do whatever they can to harass you, especially if they've gone to the level of messing with you that bad where they are calling you constantly. They're sending police to your house, fire department, taxis, sending you text messages. With the pranks themselves, normally only last a few days or until the person who's calling you gets bored with it. This is normally going to be done by younger kids. I know there was a YouTube video of a Fox, I think, what was it, Fox 11 with the anonymous thing, where the guy, they were, what was it?
Fox News.
It was Fox News, it was a video from Fox News on YouTube talking about anonymous. They were calling people. It's one of the things, I guess, that made the anonymous group big. They were calling people, harassing them, talking about they were going to kill them, just prank calls. It was, for the most part, innocent, but as it got more progressive and went to the level of harassment where they were threatening, saying, "I'm going to kill you. Your son goes to this high school. I'm going to, rape your daughter," or whatever. I've seen a lot. I've heard of a lot of different stories, things being done. I know this is terrible. But I've heard of a lot of different pranks being done. Your classics, sending pizzas to the person's house, like I said before, calling and asking if your refrigerator running, having taxis sent to your house. I've heard that one be done before a few times. There was one gentleman in particular who was actually in the Columbus area who had, there's a place called Taco Ninja. He ended up getting a nice order of about, I think it was 12 pizzas, a case of beer, and a pack of condoms, and something else. I forget what else they delivered through there. But there was something really obscure. Personal ads. That's where the real fun begins. There was an incident that happened with a intelligence group called Goons that they got the information of this one gentleman and started placing personal ads for him, saying he was homosexual, looking for intimate, think of the movie Hackers, how they started putting the personal ads on a bunch of people. That's pretty much what they're doing nowadays, but not only through just the internet personal ads. If they have your name, your address, and phone number, be sure that your local newspaper is probably going to have your name and address and phone number in there looking for a little bit of lovings. Yeah, the taxis, I've already talked about that. Harassment, this is when it gets to the point where, whether it's a day or whether it's a month, this is when it gets to the point for you where, okay, it's no longer just some kids playing around. You're sick of it. You don't want it happening anymore. It does get to that level, and it doesn't happen quite as often as you guys would think. The media has put up a few articles and had a few news reports about, oh, this hacker group or this person's getting harassed by that group. Those are extreme cases. They usually don't go beyond this level, but what do I know? I'm an amateur at this, so. A lot of things that happen. If they happen to have your cell phone number, be sure they're going to send you a lot of text messages, and your bill will go up. That is one of the things that they'll be doing. You might get a package at your house that randomly shows up. That was something that NOS were doing for a while. Spam coming in your phone. They'll sign you up for solicitors. Just stupid, petty things, but it gets annoying. It gets harassment, and by this point, you should have the police involved, or at least have a documentation of what has happened thus far. Try to record phone conversations. Document any handles, any names that they're using when they're calling. Any information that you can provide the police. Might not help the local police department, but if it gets to certain levels, it may help out the higher ends, local FBI office. When we get to the point where it's criminal messing, if you don't, like I said before, if you don't have the police involved, then there is definitely something wrong with you. If it gets to this point, these threats become almost physically abusive, where they're calling not only where your house is, but they'll be calling your work, and it's not on here. I thought I put it on here. They may send you mail, like I said before, but a lot of the mail will be unsolicited. You might notice some new credit card applications, depending upon how much information they've gathered on you. Swatting is a new term that I discovered about maybe 6 months ago. It's when they use something like My IP Relay, something they may use, like one of the spoof cards, the spoof calling cards, using an asterisk system just to spoof the phone number. It's when they call the police department, say that there's something drastic going on, it needs an instant response, and the police arrive, but they don't arrive just to check it out. They're arriving with guns pulled and looking to shoot somebody. It happened to a kid from the NOS called Seek. He had pissed a few people off doing a couple things he shouldn't be doing. I'm not going to mention what because it's sort of stupid. But he had pissed a few people off. They ended up finding out his name, his address, his phone number, and ended up finding out that he happened to live near a school. The area he's in, they have the same thing around like this area. If there's a call about a gun and any kind of gun crime, somebody just brandishing a gun, they'll send police units, they'll send people packing, and they usually don't mess around with that. But the kid had the police called on him at random. They showed up at his door, guns drawn, tossed him in cuffs, tossed his parents in cuffs, and I think tossed his little brother in cuffs because somebody had called and said that he was dealing drugs and that he had just walked out of his house brandishing an AK. So it doesn't get like this all the time, like I said, but when it does, it gets bad. And that's definitely want to be something you want to document. So when the police do show up with their guns, you can say, no, I have a police report about this happening. Certain ways to protect yourself. Common sense. Using a lot of common sense. I actually have nothing with me. Great. Don't give out your email address to people you don't know. At least not your private one. I actually have like 4 or 5 different email addresses I use. I'm a little bit of a spook that way because I don't want everybody on the online community to know who I am, but there are certain people where I don't care if they know, that I'm Nexus, I'm from Ohio. That kind of information doesn't bother me, but I have several different email addresses. One's for personal use, for my for jobs, for looking for jobs, for posting on MySpace or posting on this and that. I have another email address that's strictly going to hacker sites, going to war game sites, and a couple other ones just for redundant reasons. If you can, try not to give out your information on personal sites, such as like a gaming forum. Usually ask for your username, ask for your location. Nonchalantly, people might put their city or their state. That's the kind of information, that's the kind of searches that are going to help people to be able to backtrack different usernames. Dead Addict made a point about backtracking, putting different identities together. This is some of the ways they do that, by matching up usernames, email addresses, saying, okay, well, let's check out this email address we have here. Let's check MySpace. They check MySpace. There happens to be a MySpace account for that email address, and you happen to have a different email address put in your MySpace account that's for, say, your hacker handle. Well, now they just figured out Joe Summers is Blunt Hunt off of this forum. Okay. Try and use a gender-neutral username. I'm Nexus, so that's rather generic at that. Somebody does a search for just Nexus on Google, they're going to come up with a lot of different hits. There's more. Star Trek, yes. Oh no, what was that? There was a game called Nexus, wasn't there? Yeah. You'll get a lot of hits on that.
Not to mention all that porn of yourself you put up there.
Well, that's another story altogether. The porn. Did you get a copy of that? I'll have to send you a copy of that. Try and use generic username, generic email address. Try not, when you're doing this, try not to use common things. If it gets to the point where your information does get found out and you have to change, let me just go to a different slide. If they found you, don't panic. I know I just jumped from one slide to another rather quickly, but depending upon the level of harassment, simply blocking somebody from AIM, from your email, that should work for the most part. If you notice harassing emails coming in and AIM accounts coming in right after you block somebody, you may want to look into changing. When you change your public username, don't change it to something similar. If you're Kitty99, don't change your username to Cat99. That's going to put a little bit of a possibility of that being you. Such as if your username's Jeffrey, you don't want to use Jeff22 if your username's Jeffrey22, or use Jeff772. Fuck, why'd I do that? And it's not going to work. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, other than changing your username, using a little bit of common sense, trying not to put out as much information as you can on yourself, you should be okay. I'm all.
These kids that are going around harassing people, it sounds like this is mostly these groups targeting each other. I mean, who are they targeting? targeting? What's
They're targeting anybody. For the most part, anybody who just pisses them off. It could be some random kid on even a car forum, how to modify your car, and you say the wrong thing to them, and they happen to know somebody, or them themselves know how to just Google search. They can find you. I mean, it all depends upon the information you have out there. It depends on how well they can find you. But I mean, they're targeting anybody. Usually, the groups I've mentioned,
targeting people they know?
people they know, people they run into on the internet. I know myself a few times I've just been sitting in an IRC channel or sitting in a AIM channel and have people come in, say something stupid, and everybody in the room starts looking up their information just to find out who they are and how they can turn around and harass them for just being an idiot. But a lot of times, I mean, within the groups I mentioned, they only do target other hackers, or at least other people within the little scene that they're in, if that answers your question. Any other questions?
Do you have more examples?
I do. I completely forgot. One example about keeping your information private, and not just from the outside community, but also in real life. There was an instance with a person I used to work with. It was actually two individuals that I work with. The one used, what game was it that this happened? Final Fantasy? Okay. The one was playing a female Final Fantasy character and didn't tell anything else about them, didn't want nobody else to know about them, which is fairly understandable. What ended up happening was a particular kid that me and this other gentleman worked with, we'll call him Sippy Cup for reference reasons. But Sip didn't want nobody to know about him. He didn't want people to know that he was a guy. He didn't want people to know his phone number and address, which is, beneficial. Another gentleman who worked with us named, we'll just call him Steve. It's great. Steve had this great idea to prove everybody on the chat room or the game that they were playing on that Sip was really a guy, and nobody believed that Sip was really a guy. So he took it upon himself to give out all of Sip's information to all these people on Final Fantasy. Within, what was it, about an hour, they started getting phone calls to their house, people asking, is Sip there? Is this Sip's mom? What did they said something grotesque to Sip's mom.
Can I smell his character name's panties?
Can I smell his character's panties? But I mean, that's just one example of just how, yeah, it's bad. I mean, how can you do that to somebody that you work with? You know their information. That would be along the same lines as your niece or your sister or your little brother is posting on a website, and you happen to see that one of their friends are arguing with them. Oh no, you don't have this particular social security number. Oh yeah, he does. See, look. And they just sort of, show it. Or your phone number isn't this. Oh yeah, it is. I can prove it. See, that you guys wouldn't do that. So you wouldn't expect somebody else, whether it be coworker, friend, or family, to do that. But it happens, and it happens a lot. Are there any other questions? Considering I'm rambling on here like a retard.
What do you think about that commercial where the guy shows his social security number and he's like, "Oh, it's okay because I'm protected by this agency."
He's already been hacked.
Yeah, yeah.
Never mind.
They took a credit card out of his name.
Yeah. I'd really like to know how that service works, for the pure fact that how they can even do that.
It's harassment. The way that works, my understanding is that
They just monitor your credit history.
going on and they harass people that look like they're doing something kind of shady in your name. And like if somebody opens up a credit card in your name, they will harass the credit card company to try and get it shut down, things like that.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
honestly, it works really well.
Well, yeah, they're still around. But
The court records, I know you've got some background there. I'm wondering
how in depth can?
pranks, right? So it sounds like it's not that hard to read court records.
No.
How hard is it to get data up there? Like, let's say I wanted to put you on the sex offender registry. Is it really that hard to make that happen?
As far as that, do you have access to the system? No, I mean
Read only, I guess.
from what I understand, yeah. I mean, I haven't tried to get into the docket system through that means. I'm sure that if you go to the actual police departments where they have it at and get local access, you might be able to do something. But as far as that, I'm really not too sure on how they go about doing it. I'm sure after they say you've raped this 30-year-old chick, you can't really not be on this list. They would probably put you on it. Go for it, man.
I work for an employer in the greater Youngstown area, and someone came in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And, yeah. We Googled them just to see, because I was just trying to prove a point to HR that it's kind of worthless. Yeah, their mugshot and conviction record for embezzlement came up. So yeah, we were saying about complete records. I mean, we actually got their picture, the person's picture, their
Full name, address, and that you'll see that a lot, especially on like the sex offender sites, which I don't have a problem with, but apparently some people do, where it has their name, their address, their phone number, where they live, where they used to live. You know, might even have a social security number on there as well.
In my employer's defense, we did double check with the courthouse before we. It would have come up in the criminal search anyway.
Well, Youngstown clerk of courts, they just recently updated their public access terminal. It used to be you can actually drop into a shell prompt off their null terminal. For a while, you just sort of spam the arrow keys and would drop you right into prompt. Calvin, what's up?
How dangerous is like your license plate information?
I've heard of certain states that had a license plate lookup off their main DMV site, but I don't know for sure. I've never really tried looking up any. Huh?
Because it's not that hard.
Ohio has that now too?
Sort of. Ohio OH plates.
To look up. Well, yeah. I mean,
CBOS runs it.
oh.
So they could just go there and find out everything about you, where you live and everything. By looking at your license plate.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I wasn't even aware Ohio had anything like that recently, so shows you how up to date I am.
Came in a little late, but anything about Real ID?
No, it didn't cover anything about Real ID, but I'll tell you what I personally think of it. It scares the living shit out of me. I'd like to learn more about it as far as how they're going to be implementing it, or at least there's some things I'd like to know. I doubt they're going to be telling any of us. But no, I really haven't covered it at all.
It's just basically a replacement for a SOAP, isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, I really see some shady things coming from that. As far as what extent, I'm not too sure. We can only speculate. I mean, think the worst, and then that's probably what's going to happen.
Are you going to give this company Ohio Information Security?
Probably not. I actually haven't talked to any of the InfoSec guys for a while. So.
Too bad, because I was looking for your real name.
Hey, Google search nexus.logic@gmail.com. Are there any other questions, considering I'm out of things to talk about?
I'm a system administrator. I'm a database guy. Just something that we did for some problem users we've had that decided to go on the Tor network and start spamming our forums. They were dumb enough to use the same password. So we were able to identify accounts by matching hashes. So just something, if you use the same password as an account when you change your system, the system administrator will know it's you still.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Everything's different, same password.
We've had that happen. Well, not exactly that where they've been employee fired, but on a few forums I moderate on, we've had people cancel and actually come back with their regular IP address, and we're shocked that we found out that, oh, it's the same person.
I found that if you need to look up information about someone you went to school with or someone who has been to a school.
You just go to the school, literally just go to the school website.
Or you can also go through classmates.com because they kind of archive all the names to get the exact spelling.
A scary thing that I noticed while I was Google searching a few things, there's a high school in the Youngstown area that actually documents from 2000 to 2007 all their graduates or graduates to be's real names and their email addresses, just in the public domain. So you got a bunch of kids. There's about 200-300 different email addresses on there. So and God only knows what information are about these kids because they're younger. You know.
I don't know if it's the same one you're thinking of, but I know my high school does that, but it's a voluntary sort of a thing. I mean, so generally what I found was you have information from about 10 years ago when someone graduated. You know, people tend to move around a lot.
Yeah.
That information might be pretty inaccurate.
Well, as far as like the address, possibly, but a lot of the people, when you were working for the last company we were working at together, and you were using your website and you were using your email address for that, have you changed that email address since you worked with me and?
I don't know about since then. My real name is my email address. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to hide from anybody.
Well, that's not what I'm asking. Have you changed it though?
In the last few years,
Okay, in the last 5 years, have you changed it?
I've changed it in high school.
Okay, so, all right, well, that's a different story. All right, bad example. Sorry. Well, a lot of people don't think to do that, though, especially if they're younger high school kids, 14, 15, 16, 18-year-olds. Their security and their initial privacy isn't commonly the most top thing on their mind, especially if they're not, really into the whole hacking scene or paranoid or spooks or, dealing with anything like that. Then again, I'm a retard, so what do I know? Are there any questions? No? Any other ways I can make an ass of myself in front of everyone?
Wow.
No, I do not have a Facebook. What's up?
I don't really have a question, just a comment. Like, all the public stuff that you can get through the internet, that's nothing compared to what, like, LexisNexis has on you.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, if you work for them, you can make all the searches that you want, or, like, awesome research papers and stuff when I was in college, because I could get access to any journals.
Well, that's not fair. Why don't
There's no way you'd ever get an LexisNexis account illicitly. I mean, that's never happened.
Oh, no, yeah.
No, I'm just saying, like, public record stuff is one thing, but, like,
Oh yeah. Well, you also got to consider what the vastness that they have. That would fall in the category of like the Intellis sites, where that's what they do. They do the background checks and everything for corporations and companies. Those are the kind of sites that I was mentioning for like Intellis, where that's what they do. That's what they're paid to do, and they built their entire company based around that. But as far like if I don't have $50 to throw to a company just to find somebody on the internet at random that happened to piss me off, I'm not going to try and find $50 when I can easily do a Google search and get the information that I'm looking for. What more is commonly what these kids are looking for is name, address, phone number, and email address. Unless they really want to get to you, they're not going to go and check the docket systems at the local clerk of court or the federal courts. They're just trying to find a way to mess with you until they get bored.
So for a while, I used to have a page up with my name, and the synopsis on Google showed like some interesting keywords that they might be looking for if they were looking for dirt. And in fact, it was just a trigger to my own script that would alert me and interrogate the browser and log whatever they came with.
That's actually pretty cool.
Basically, when just a few days before a headhunter would call me, I would know that a headhunter was about to call me.
That's actually a really cool system.
It's hard though because you have to avoid getting all the hits from the search engines, and you used to be able to make like invisible hyperlinks, but since spammers all started messing with page ranking, Google became really good at like basically eliminating links that humans cannot click on, which is what you need for this system, because otherwise you get way too many false positives.
Yeah, especially like dealing with like the cache system, because I know a lot of people. If a lot of people will use like cache systems from Google to view information that may have changed.
Yeah,
How'd you write it? What's involved in writing the script?
the script will just log that.
You and then you. Walker.
At least I would know roughly.
I've seen I saw an instance where on Facebook somebody posted,
It's just getting
I live at XXX, say Lakeside Drive or Avenue in Washington. And he said, I'm moving, and everything in my house is free. Go ahead and take everything you want. And hundreds of people just showed up at his house and ransacked the guy's house, broke in and everything. And they were like, he showed up, and he's like, what are you doing? And people were like, I have proof, I'm allowed to go in. And I showed the printout of it. Craigslist.
Was that on Craigslist?
It was.
So are you just commenting, or are you asking
Just
like?
commenting.
Yeah, that's happened quite a few times. Or even just putting up where somebody works. Hey, I'm bored. Give me a call, and put their work phone number on there. Call and ask for so and so. So yeah, that.
Put somebody else's.
Yeah, you go up to Craigslist, say, hey, I'm bored. My name's so and so, and this is where I work. Hey, give me a call. We'll meet up or whatever. It's not. I mean that's a little bit of far-fetched, but I'm sure it's bound to happen.
What do you think about like the privacy issues that are introduced by things like Microsoft Terra Server or Google Maps with satellite view? I mean, like,
it makes the work easier for a lot of people who are doing this kind of searching.
And what do you think about how Google Maps, truly, if you have a Google account, you're allowed to edit any information they have on that map system. I mean, that just seems totally out of place. Like,
Yeah.
You're only allowed to move it so far, though.
what?
You're only allowed to move it so far.
Well, I think the angle he's coming from is more putting the I live here posts or whatever they're called. I haven't used Google Earth for about a year, so I don't know what they have going on.
Not even Earth, just the maps feature.
Just maps.
You can edit somebody's,
Really?
Their name, phone number,
You just post all their information right up on there.
Right, exactly.
Something like that, I think they should probably lock that down, or at least make it so that they can only edit it for their specific user account. Do they have it to the extent where me and you both have a user account on there, you're A, I'm B, and you log on yours and you're able to edit B's profile, or?
No.
No? Okay.
No, wait. You can, anything, for instance, I had a client who it's a construction company, and they have, an office, they have, where they keep all their trucks and shit like that.
Okay.
And, I Google mapped his office, or just, the business name, and it came up with 3 different things. And I was like, oh, well, since I'm making him a new website, I'm going to go ahead and change the website. And it was just it was no problem. You just click edit and click go. That's it.
Yeah, something like that would make me a little bit nervous, especially that somebody can, if they know where my address is, they can put Nexus and then all the person's information. Yes, Calvin.
I'd imagine it's like Wikipedia, where if there's something that's getting a lot of edits, they probably have a system where that gets flagged and locked down.
Actually, but even being edited once when the information up there.
Yeah, once is all it takes.
Actually, in Medina County, one of the liquor stores moved the bigger competitor's liquor store address marker to their location. And it's like
That's slick.
across it's like a half-mile away. It's the farthest you can do it in Google, but they got away with it. And I've moved it before when I looked at it.
What's the name? It's been heard my business.
Northport Beverage. So.
Yeah, Calvin.
But do you have any examples of social hacking, where you call into a place and play around with a phone system until you get what you want?
Yes.
Not.
You worked there.
I know not what company you speak of, where I was answering the phone as if I was Arabic.
I had been robbed, and I found out that to get my insurance element, I had to say the magic word, attorney. And it was boom, 2 weeks, they fixed the problem, got me my settlement. I had a check in my hand.
No comment. Yeah, well, or
I got something to follow up on. I'm kind of just thinking in my head. I got a feeling it probably isn't that hard to put somebody's house up for market just through the internet.
no, it's not. It's really not. And I learned that back when we were both working for that mortgage company.
Well, that's different. That's where, I'm not saying somebody calling in. I'm not saying somebody calling in. I'm talking to them and refining. I'm saying I decide I want to sell your house with no input from you at all.
If you get their information, I've seen a few examples of that happen through where we were working.
How much information do I need to put your house on the market?
If I remember correctly, name, address, phone number, and social.
People's entire homes have been sold from out from under them with forged documents, and you just realize they find out too late that somebody else bought their house.
Yep, and they already have the deed and everything.
It's really almost impossible because the city is doesn't want to take the responsibility for dealing with the forged documents.
Especially,
and there's a legitimate buyer who now owns it.
Especially when you have all the different websites, such as what was it called? There's some online court dockets or court information system where you can go on, get all the documentation done for you right there online. They have lawyers that'll do it for you pretty much for what was it, $5 or something? It's something ridiculously cheap. They'll do all the paperwork for you. All you have to do is go to the clerk of courts or go to wherever it needs to be done to the auditor's office and just cash it in. Just show them the paperwork, file it, and you're done. But yeah, that kind of thing, I've like I said, I was telling him, I've heard it happen a few times. It is very scary. Of course, anything they can do with even a little bit of information nowadays is scary. I mean, they can go through old library records, find people old, not library records, old recorder records, go right to the recorder's office, pull up death certificates, old birth certificates and death certificates, and become that person. Or even pull up birth certificates that have never really been used, that are from a younger person, and become that person and completely screw over their entire identity. Yeah.
Comment on that. A good comment on that is going to your high school and asking for your diploma or a certified copy of it, and then saying, okay, well, I don't have my birth certificate anymore. I'm going to go where they were born and get a copy of my birth certificate. All you need is a copy of the high school graduation records or something like that. There's always loopholes where you don't need a document to get a document, and then they just cascade through
Well,
to find that information.
The biggest link, one of the biggest links is going to be, as far as location like that, clerk of courts, is going to be human error. It's going to be somebody who feels bad for the person, they just want to help them out, or it's somebody, it's last 30 minutes of work and they want to get out of work, so they're willing to push this person through just so they can go home and go to bed, or get that drink, or whatever it is they're doing when they go home.
Does anyone else have questions? Who has questions? Anybody besides you? Okay, good.
How much time do we have left? How much?
He knows you. You've hit your quota.
Yeah, Unhold, you're done, man. Just put the dick down.
Now, with social networking groups and whatnot, what do you think it's going to take for our generation, not geeks, whatever, just like standard kids and whatnot? What do you think it's going to take for them to know not to put their home phone number, their cell phone, their address, all this bullshit online, and not expect to get fucked?
My honest opinion, my dead honest opinion, as far as the younger generations, people who aren't geeks, people who aren't people who wouldn't come here. I see it happening. I see it before they're able to become aware of it. It either happening to them or happening to somebody they know before they actually put thought into it, or about another five to 6 years before they're old enough to know.
Do you think there's anything the government can, or anybody can?
Parents. I mean, that's one of the biggest protectors for when you're younger, to make sure you don't do anything stupid. It's going to be your parents. If the parents aren't involved, especially my niece is 9 years old and she doesn't get online unless me or my sister are sitting right next to her, because she's 9 and she doesn't need to be going through Google by herself, because there's some sick shit she can see on Google.
Yeah, I mean, 2 chicks, 1 cup.
Yeah. Oh, that was so terrible. 2 chicks, 1 cup. Yuck. But oh, that was so terrible. 2 girls, 1 cup. Awesome website. You should all visit it. No.
Oh, you're getting raped.
But no, I mean, in order for the younger generation, I feel, to become more aware of it, is either more than likely to have it. For right now, if we were to say today, for them to become aware today, I'd have to say it would either have to happen to them or happen to somebody close to them where it was big enough. You know what I mean? Somebody was calling and driving past their house, shooting paintballs at their house, for them to realize, maybe I shouldn't have placed that picture of me in my underwear on the internet. I probably shouldn't have put that image of my phone list on there to show that I made over 4,000 calls in a month.
Miss America, she got caught with a semi-scandalous picture on Facebook.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about hearing about that.
Yeah.
Well, But yeah, it's going to come down to either the parents showing more interest in getting their kids aware of privacy on the internet, or it's going to take something by the government, which I hope doesn't happen, because God knows they're trying to censor it enough as it is. But other than that, I mean, I feel a lot of it's going to be a parent's responsibility, especially with the younger kids, under 12 years old, under 14 rather. I mean, I'd hate to say it, but I think a lot of them are naive to the fact of what does go on the internet, and they think it's just a big playground. But that's about it. Yes?
I was kind of under the impression that with caller ID and other ways of tracking, who made the phone calls to the police department or who's making the prank calls to your own cell phone.
No, there's calling cards. In fact, there is a young gentleman that was actually selling one of the calling cards where they can spoof the phone number that they're calling from. You can do a lot of tricks with asterisks. It's one of the fun little things you can do is spoof where you're calling from. Huh? Yeah, it's very illegal, but it can be done, and it does happen a lot. And people can call you from your own phone number, and it'll come up on your caller ID as being your phone number.
And a lot of corporations use the caller ID to authenticate you for who you are.
Yes.
Especially with voicemail.
Mm-hmm. But you have that. You have stuff like My IP Relay, where if they do try and get the phone number, it usually comes up 012345678, or I'm sorry, not 12345678990, or it'll come up from a central office from your local area, just some random phone number. If they try and trace it back, the person who's talking to the operator is doing it all remotely over a computer through AIM or through a website. And if they're doing it through a website, all they need is a proxy. You can use Tor, something like that. They just jump into the website and start typing. That's really about all that takes.
It's a matter of time before that gets shut down, I think.
Or at least gets limited and restricted more so. I mean, it's completely open. You can text message somebody from AIM just by knowing their phone number repeatedly. You can do the same thing with My IP Relay. You just send an instant message to a screen name, and it asks you for a phone number. You put in the phone number, and you start dialing out. So, but I hope that answers that question. Any other questions before I jump off here?
What's your social security number?
58529.
All we need.
But all right, well, that's Calvin, of course.
Technically, the first three numbers of your social security number is where you were born. So
Yeah, it'll be the city. It'll usually be the state.
three numbers, so you only need to guess the last couple of numbers.
Well, and
No, it's not where you're born. It's where you applied for the card.
Oh, okay.
is that it?
Yes.
I thought they issued it from where you're born. Oh.
The state you applied for.
It's within the state itself. It's
designated
okay.
for 3 digits.
All right, well, learn something new. See.
Sticker on his laptop narrowed that down?
Sorry?
Didn't the squirrely Skinner sticker on his laptop narrow that down?
Yeah. Don't forget the ShmooCon ones. No. But any other questions? See, I knew I picked the wrong laptop.
I live 15 minutes from home.
Oh, do you? Oh, okay. So, all right. So we're like this now. We know. What was your handle again? Can I get now? Yeah. If there's no more questions.
One last thing.
Hold on.
You only pointed out like the really easy resources that people have access to.
Yeah.
There
are a lot more resources.
Thousands of databases that people can legitimately get access to by paying for them, or illegitimately getting access to them by knowing someone, that are incredibly scary to have everything.
Like a lot of private investigator sites will do it.
Exactly.
I didn't want to touch up on anything that in depth because I didn't feel it necessary. Like I said, I'm not a professional at this. This is the methods I showed are the methods I've used before to find people, and it's what I'm comfortable with. And I might be able to answer those questions. But as far as using the bigger sites, I've never used them. I've never really messed with them. Besides using Intellis to pull up where a city and state is from a cell phone number. That's about the most in depth I use with anything like that. But they are, some of them are very scary, especially with like LexisNexis. There's
Some of them are aggregators. I mean, it'll like automatically search through a whole bunch of databases.
There's
private services like that.
I think Intellis does that. But there was one particular intelligence site or background checking site like that where they were actually vulnerable to a simple SQL injection, like the most basic one, and you can get right in, start searching people as admin. So yeah, those kind of sites are really good, and so all we need is a bunch of people learning how to use. But no, I didn't want to touch up on those because I don't know how to use them that well. I've really never used them to an extent besides, like I said, looking up cell phone numbers to find out what city and state where they were from. So beyond that, though, I mean, that's.
And just the corruption, if somebody works at a company like a cell phone company.
Oh yeah, there's.
They'll still, some people work at the wireless carriers will sell you out for $10 to sell your bill.
$10 I'll look up.
Or people that work in government agencies or in law enforcement that can be corrupted and sell information that they get out of databases they have exclusive access to.
That was actually happening through a Verizon call center for their DSL tech support about 3 years ago. There was a specific gentleman that was selling information from people in the Columbus area he was selling out. So he got arrested for that, and I think is doing about 5 or 6 years for it.
Yeah, one of the few people that got caught.
Yeah. Well, he got caught because he was advertising it to the other people he was working with, including his team leader, that he was making all this extra money by looking up people and other people should start doing it and make money. So, yeah. Yeah, smarts can only go so far before you get stupid again. But I guess that's the talk. Sorry if it wasn't that entertaining. Like I said, I'm a noob at this. So. But thank everybody for coming, and enjoy NOTACON. Grifter, go get me a beer. That's apple juice.
Because you seem like you have an interest in this, you have the passion for it, so.
I'd like to learn. I'd like to do more with it. It's just having the time to do it. Like the group NOS I was mentioning, I have participated with a lot of different things with them. So I have helped them out do a little bit of research, so to speak. I'll call it.